This has been an absolute crazy week for AI. At first, we had the Pope saying that perhaps AI needs to be stopped in the near future, or they need to think of some countermeasures to make sure that AI doesn't completely fry people's brains, and that was very interesting to watch. Then, pretty quickly afterwards, Anthropic released multiple papers about the idea of either seeing how AI develops, and basically the long story short is they also need to think of a way to potentially shut AI progress down. But the problem is, you can't trust other parties to slow it down because they can make money. So they need to find a certain way, but they don't know really even for sure if AI will get out of control, whatever. It's been a pretty crazy week just based on that. Only now do I find out that it's not only the Pope, which is a pretty big deal. It's not only Anthropic and OpenAI and all these massive AI companies. No, it's of course the White House too. Mr. Donald Trump decided that something needs to be said about AI. Not just one, but a couple of posts just went out, but one of them is this right here that I found so freaking peculiar. This came out just now. Promoting advanced artificial intelligence innovation and security. By the authority vested in me as the President of the Constitution and the laws of the US, I hereby order, and here's where it gets pretty interesting. The US continues to lead the world in AI because of the enormous talent and innovation, and it definitely makes our nation stronger, but also introduces new national security considerations that require coordinated action across executive departments and agencies. If you're not exactly sure where this is going, this is basically Trump stating, you know what, we, as the US, need to be at the freaking forefront of AI. We're going to be supporting the living crap out of it because, first of all, they want to win. We know Trump in the way he's always talking about crypto, always talking about the stock market, and basically any endeavor Trump wants to win, or at least make it sound like he's won, which is interesting on its own. But right now, when it comes to AI, over the past couple of weeks, we saw some pretty massive battles of the government and what type of additional control they should be allowed to have. But here they say that it's in their best interest, I guess, to have secure technology being deployed rapidly to confront any and all threats to our country by basically being the leading resource, by being the leading country when it comes to cybersecurity, and for that logic, also AI dominance. Now, the reason I find this so peculiar is because this makes a lot of sense. We've seen just how good Anthropic's Claude Mythos was and how big of a security risk it could be, but why this becomes way more interesting to all of us is because from that angle, if the US, and I've read the full paper here, they are really concerned about war, basically. Within 30 days of the date of this order, which was a few days ago, the Secretary of War shall prioritize the cyber defense of the Department of War Information Systems by taking appropriate and expeditious action consistent with the purpose of this order. So basically, they want to go full all in on making sure AI is developed in a certain way, or make sure it can be kept under the US's control, partially, I guess, for offense, and also very much so for defense. But here it brings the point. The fact that they actually had to release a freaking paper about the idea that they want to be at the forefront, ooh, right? And I'm wondering, are they going to be supporting these AI companies like crazy? Like, how big are these freaking national security type of contracts going to be with these AI companies? Which ones will they choose? As you guys know, I get my news sent to me every single day, and if you guys want to get some of these updates as well, I will be releasing a newsletter very shortly, so you guys can also get access to all the stuff that I've let these AI set up for me. But anyway, it's pretty interesting here, and this is again just some internal docs, but still I wanted to quickly go ahead and talk about it. As you can see right here, the White House EO executive order is by far the top highlight of the last couple of days. AI Cybersecurity Clearinghouse plus Voluntary Frontier Model Framework plus Secure Early Access for Trusted Partners explicitly bars mandatory licensing / pre-clearance, AG to prioritize AI cybercrime enforcement. But let me again conclude kind of why this is so interesting, to me at least. It's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we've seen some crazy, massive new developments from all these labs over in China, which some do not deem as frontier models. They deem Anthropic or OpenAI or some of these massive ones as frontier models, and some of the open source ones as kind of being second class, debatable, but whatever. But we've seen a lot of new advancements in open source tech, open source models, etc. It's kind of peculiar to see now that from the US's side, there's this little question of national security. I kind of wonder if, by this logic then, any of the companies in the US or any of these frontiers, well, will ever really think of going open source based on the idea that, well, they have a lot of benefit for potentially keeping closed. But more importantly there, maybe at some point, they're not even going to be allowed to be open anymore based on national security risks. And perhaps, again, they're going to have different sort of rules, once more, based on U.S. security risks. And, I mean, depending on how serious the U.S. takes it, things are really being put in these companies' favor. Well, actually, in addition to measures to strengthen cyber defense, the order outlines a framework for U.S. government and private sector collaboration in the secure development and deployment of frontier AI models. So, just the way I'm reading it here personally, what if, and this is probably already being worked on, being completely open and honest with you, but what if in the background, these companies really are working with the government to make models that are specifically usable by the US government, because that's the country that these guys are operating in, and also because, well, it's like a top secret type of thing. This is, of course, speculation on the furthest end, but from the way they're writing it, it seems like this is kind of happening. Anyway, however, the order emphasizes that its approach is voluntary, debatable, and should not be construed as a mandatory licensing, permitting, or pre-clearance requirement. Specified agencies are directed to develop and maintain a benchmarking process, which will be classified under U.S. national security authorities to determine which AI models should be considered covered frontier models. And to assess models' advanced cyber capabilities, this benchmarking is intended to establish a mechanism for AI developers to provide the U.S. government with limited access to covered frontier models. And so, to that extent, this is basically saying they want to have access or potentially get access in a nice way to newer models like Mythos, or potentially models that are even better than that for the sake of cybersecurity, up to 30 days prior to planned release, because they want to have early bird status before sharing early access to these models with selected trust partners in the private sector. So what happened with Claude Mythos Preview was a couple of massive companies, Apple and, well, NVIDIA, you get it, right? A couple of those big ones, probably Intel and a few more that I can't think of on the spot. They had access to this in the private sector, basically, because, well, NVIDIA is making the chips. They need to know exactly what they could be doing better. I think probably Cloudflare, who's hosting like half of the freaking internet and making sure that's all arranged well. These guys can spot cyber vulnerabilities, et cetera, et cetera. They had access first. The government wants to be one step before that, which of course is understandable, but I really wonder how mandatory this non-mandatory thing is going to be, and how they're going to be able, or how they're going to think to, well, I guess mandate it. This situation kind of makes me think of the whole Palantir situation, but for some reason is going very much unnoticed as of this point, the fact that this is right now an official executive order. And I guess that's really from the perspective that there's no big contracts in the open that we know of right now. There's no mandate saying, oh, yeah, all these major AI companies are going to have to come and send it to us. It's more of a matter of, hey, you know what, for the sake of national security, they should probably do that. But I just wonder how this is going to develop, because to a certain extent, you know, these are companies that theoretically speaking could have an interest in any country in the world, right? I mean, it could be a US listed company while still having their most biggest interest lying in Singapore, Hong Kong, you name it, right? This is all in theory. Where would their loyalty lie? But from that angle also, a US company can't just mandate it just because it's a US company if nobody there is like US based, for example, or nobody's actually a United States citizen, because then you're asking a company just because it's here to, you know, basically give themselves to the government for access. Then again, if you're a U.S. company, then, oh, you know, that kind of comes along with the territory, because, well, if it's a national defense issue, I don't know, but the U.S. has done some crazier things in names of, of national defense, I think. Anyway, I didn't want to make this a long video. I just wanted to kind of talk about what I saw. All of a sudden, a freaking U.S. official order coming out about the situation and what the implications of it could be. Again, nothing really too crazy or fancy is written out just quite yet. It's just saying that they really see AI having some massive potential, and they kind of want these massive AI companies to give them early access. And I am just kind of concerned as to how this is going to turn out over the next couple of weeks or months. This is not the first time Trump has talked about AI. This will not be the last time he's talked about AI. This is also nothing too conclusive, too specific. They're not name dropping every single one of them. I'm just throwing out some early concerns here that this is kind of a scary letter that most people are looking over. And I just thought you guys might need to hear about it, because I think it's quite peculiar. Let me know down below, though, how you think this private sector in combination with the federal government is going to be working over the next couple of months. You think real mandates will be coming in? Or you think this is all just a bit of panic from my side that's absolutely not necessary because they're not going to do shit? Let me know down below what you think about the situation, and hopefully see you guys get another crypto video somewhere tomorrow. Matter of fact, this is an AI video, not a crypto video. What am I saying? That's about it.